I honestly don't know how else Sony could keep putting their foot in their mouth. I mean, not only did the PS5 showcase end on such a disappointing note with all the confirmed leaks and them not believing in generations anymore, but Sony's boss, Jim Ryan, decided to speak in an interview about the Xbox competitors and give his take on why the Xbox Series S console just doesn't work, and how throughout history it's a strategy that hasn't worked before, and that they had plans for something like that, but decided to go against it. Well, if we take Jim Ryan for his word, I would say he might actually bring out a PS5S, because he basically goes back on almost everything he says and continues to misdirect so many gamers. And can I also say that this console that Jim Ryan is talking about hasn't even been released yet. He wants to bring it down because he knows that the price of the console are what really matters. And while Sony doesn't have the power narrative anymore, they also don't have the price narrative now, because not only are they equal to the Xbox Series X in price, but they're higher than the Xbox Series S. It's as if the walls are closing in around Sony and they're trying to say pretty much anything to put themselves in a better light, when in reality, the Series S console is pretty powerful for the price that it's coming out with. Not to mention the things that Jim Ryan says in the interview is completely disingenuous and a little out of left field, and more importantly, completely inaccurate. But I won't just tell you that. Let me lay it all down for you, because this interview is a little weird, especially since after the debacle that was the PlayStation 5 showcase, it's a little weird for Jim Ryan to say something so inaccurate and kind of weird. So let's get into this interview and see just how much Jim Ryan and Sony called out Xbox and their new Xbox Series S console. But first, like always, if you liked the video, hit that subscribe button and that like button. The support is greatly appreciated. Alright, enough of that. Let's get into this interview where Jim Ryan basically says that the Xbox Series S console might not work out for Xbox. He said this while speaking to a Japanese site, AV Watch, where he was asked about the price point of the Series S and how it might cause problems for the PS5 strategy moving forward. But the best part about this is that he not only says it might not work, but he fears it might quickly become obsolete. But at the same time, he mentions that Sony was thinking about making a similar console to compete with price and come in at a lower price, which the site points out here. PlayStation considered a lower spec PS5 console similar to the Xbox Series S, but feared it would quickly become obsolete, CEO Jim Ryan has said. Now, I find it extremely weird that he mentions that they thought about doing a similar console but decided against it because it would quickly become obsolete. That's a little weird considering Xbox has said they'll support the console for the entire generation, and developers from all over the gaming industry talked about how the console isn't hard to develop for. But what's the most interesting thing about this console is the fact that Jim Ryan says that these types of consoles didn't fare well in the past. Here's what the article had to say and what Jim Ryan had to say. Speaking to Japanese site AV Watch, translated by VGC, the exec said that based on Sony's research, lower-priced, reduced-spec consoles had not had great results in the past. So, I'll be very honest, I can't remember in history where something like this happened before. I truly believe that what Xbox is doing with the Series S and the Series X is the first time in history something like this is happening. So it makes me wonder, what other console that had lower specs on the same architecture and the same CPU and very similar form factors is he talking about? Because for the life of me, I can't think of one, and maybe someone could point out one for me because I'm at a loss with this. As a matter of fact, the only console I can think of is the Switch Lite from Nintendo, who released that console just to be a handheld and not be able to dock on the TV. And from the look of the console, it's selling extremely well and performing very well for Nintendo. So if anything, the best possible example I could give anyone is the Nintendo Switch Lite, which if we look at the numbers has been performing very well and should almost justify the strategy that Xbox is going with the Series S console. This all seems like Sony's Jim Ryan is grasping at straws and trying to call out Xbox for something he just can't compete with. And frankly, something he doesn't have an answer to. It's something we gamers like to call damage control. And Sony, after that horrible press showing to gamers, is in full damage control mode. And what's the best way of taking bad attention off yourself? Well, just challenge the strategy by your main competitor and see if it will push the focus on them instead of you. Would have worked if he actually made an argument that held water. And speaking of competitors, that's someone that Jim Ryan brings up when he says this. The first thing I would like to say is that I respect every competitor's decision and their philosophies. Clearly, price is a very important factor. We respect other companies' competitive strategies. However, we are fully committed and believe in our current strategy and the effect it will have. You know, I'm actually so glad he mentioned the price of the consoles, because this is the main reason Jim Ryan is even bringing this console up and saying it doesn't work. Because Sony not only lost the power narrative this generation, but they also lost the price narrative on both accounts. Yeah, they have the PS5 digital edition at $399, but from reports we saw earlier, those are about 23% of the actual PS5 consoles out on the market. The main one with a disk drive is $499, which is the same exact price as the Xbox Series X console. That to me is a win on the Xbox side of things, because not only is it the most powerful console on the market, but it's also the best priced. I mean, you get more power and performance for the same price as the PS5. Every single game looks and plays better on the Series X console, and it comes at the same exact price. Talk about a win for Microsoft and Xbox. Which brings me back to the article about price being very important. That's of course the main factor for the Series S. Xbox made it the most affordable next generation console and is honestly going to compete with most people's PC rigs they have. In order for people to make a computer at $299 that can do 1440p, 60 to 120 FPS games, and even some 4K games is going to cost a lot of money. The GPU alone will cost you $200 to $300 if not more. Not to mention the rest of the rig. So when you put it all together, the Series S is one of the best values in gaming right now, and it gives you everything you need to join the next generation experience at an affordable price. Something that Sony just can't compete with, and that's why Sony's Jim Ryan says things like this. One thing that can be said is that if you look at the history of the gaming business, creating a specific low-priced, reduced spec console is something that has not had great results in the past. We've considered that option and seen other executives who have attempted this discover how problematic it is. He added, based on our research, it's clear that people who buy a game console want to continue using it for 4, 5, 6, or even 7 years. They want to believe they have bought something that is future-proofed and not going to be outdated in 2 to 3 years. They want to have faith that if they end up buying a new TV, that their current console will be able to support that new 4K TV they are considering on buying. What type of logic is he trying to push off here? I feel like this is almost a concerned troll or something. It's as if he's trying to deter people from investing in a console he would presumably know nothing about. How could he say that the Series S console, which is far more powerful than the Xbox One and the PS4 consoles, is going to be obsolete or not be supported in 3 or 4 years later? I mean, he just said that he would support the way less powerful PS4 for the next 3 or 4 years after the PS5 releases. But it's going to be impossible for Xbox to support the Series S console that has way better specs and better architecture built into the system, and that it's going to become obsolete all of a sudden? Things like this make me feel like he's trying to troll a little bit, and that he's trying to cause more drama around the console instead of competing with it. It's a solid strategy because people will write articles about it and then they will reach someone that doesn't know what they're talking about, and they'll run with a narrative that it will cause development troubles and hold back gaming. When in reality, games for the next year or two at least are going to run on the PS4 and the Xbox One console, which have far less powerful specs. He also mentions 4K TVs and that people want to make sure they can use those TVs on the new console they bought. What? I mean, 1440p is a great resolution, and not to mention the main attraction to the next generation consoles isn't the graphics or the resolution, it's the performance and the solid 60 to 120 FPS games that we will finally see as console gamers. This is a pretty weird concern to have for someone that truly doesn't have an answer to the Xbox strategy. Now, to be completely transparent, a lot of developers have spoken out about this console and even talked about developing on it. And since this is something that's never happened before, we can see that some developers have questions, and rightfully so. Here's some of the quotes from developers that have talked about the console. Remedy's technical producer also voiced concern, writing, "As a consumer, I love this. As a technical producer, I see trouble." However, Gavin Stevens, design lead at independent studio Team Blur Games, dismissed suggestions that Series S would hold back next-gen innovation. No, it's not, and anybody with even a little experience will tell you as much, he wrote. I'll go into more detail below as to why that is, but the most important aspect is that this is not a last-gen console. I can't stress that enough. In a recent interview with The Verge, Microsoft's director of Xbox program management, Jason Ronald, said that the company did a lot of analysis of what it would mean to run a game at 4K with 60 FPS, and then to scale that down to 1440p at 60 FPS. The reality is you don't need as much memory bandwidth because you're not loading the highest level MIP levels into memory, he said. You don't need the same amount of memory as well. And there you have it. I wanted to be transparent with everyone. Is there some developers that see trouble because they haven't worked with something like this before? Of course there is, but that doesn't mean that Xbox didn't do their research and understand some of the concerns. Just like Jason Ronald said, Xbox did a lot of analysis to see what it would take to support both of these consoles and not to compromise the vision of the developers. And the main thing they had to do was that they had to make the console powerful on certain aspects like the CPU. But the GPU could be powerful, but not as powerful as the Series X console. That allows developers to scale the resolution down and some of the assets. It makes the Series S easy to develop for. Is it going to be something that they get down first time and overnight? No, it will take some time for developers to get it right, but with Sony supporting PS4 for 3 to 4 years and Xbox supporting the Xbox One consoles for about 2 years, I don't see how this will be a problem for developers to get their games on this powerful little beast of a console. And it also makes these statements by Sony's Jim Ryan a little weird and debunks a lot of what he said. Now, maybe some of his concerns could come true, but right now it just seems like fear-mongering and like he's trying to sabotage the best priced console on the market. Let's hope Xbox answers soon, because so far this is something I can't see taking hold in the media and other people that want to spin Xbox in a negative way. Especially since Xbox has been doing a pretty good job marketing their next generation Xbox Series X consoles. Let's hope for Microsoft and Xbox's sake that continues. And let's also hope that Jim Ryan stops putting his foot in his mouth and Sony starts actually answering some of the questions we have about their vision for next generation. But enough about what I think, tell me what you think about all of this. Did this sound like damage control by Jim Ryan? Does Sony have anything to compete with the Series S? Are you worried about the console at all? Do you think it will hold back gaming? Is the weaker CPU in the PS5 going to be a problem? What other console in history was like the Series S? Should Xbox respond with a statement? What can Sony do to compete with the Series S price? Go down below and let me know. And I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please hit that subscribe button and that like button. The support helps out the channel more than you know. And give me a follow on Twitter at Zalker87. I'm always on there talking games and sharing my latest videos. Plus, I love interacting with everyone there. So get on Twitter and let's talk about gaming. Also, follow me on Xbox Live. My gamertag is Zalker87, just like my channel name. See what games I'm playing, and let's compete in achievements for the month. Right now, I'm playing Marvel's Avengers still, having a lot of fun with that, and I'm also going through a couple games on Game Pass. I'm just kind of going through there and playing some of these miscellaneous games that don't really get the spotlight. I'm playing golfing with friends, which is a lot of fun and very competitive with your friends. I've gotten a bunch of achievements on that game, and I'm honestly trying to shoot under par on every map. I'm just having a lot of fun with that game. It's really good. I highly recommend it. But tell me where you're playing. Are you working through your backlog, or are you going through some games and having fun and playing some of these newer games, or are you just waiting for the new consoles to come out so you could jump back into gaming? Go down below and let me know. And that's all for now. Thanks for watching, and until next time, remember, enjoy your gaming. Later.